Welcome to this online tutorial regarding grammar, with particular focus on using the correct version of your and your in your writing. Your and your are homonyms, and in English those are words which sound the same but have different grammatical functions and can also often have different spellings as well. English is full of them. And they are one of the reasons why both native and non-native speakers of English find English difficult to use, to learn and to write because of that disparity between how the word sounds and not being able to pick up the different grammatical rules just by hearing the word. So this, in my experience, is a common word that is confused, particularly with students at GCSE, but also across writing courses. So if you are doing a functional skill or GCSE in English, or you're doing ESOL or IELTS or any other course with language as its focus, and you have a writing assessment or a writing part of the paper or the course, then you need to make sure, particularly for that writing section, that you use the correct version of this word, because using the wrong version will cost you some marks. It's always worth bearing in mind that the examiner will be going through your work with a fine-tooth comb or with a magnifying glass, and you don't want to be one of those students that has marks taken off because of small errors that you could have maybe changed very quickly as part of a proofreading activity. So in GCSE, for example, it's called technical accuracy, which is assessed for both question 5s in both papers, the writing section. You should not really be losing marks for small errors like this, just because it's irritating. And there are many students who are 1 or 2 marks off a particular grade boundary, and it's annoying, for example, if that's the case because of a very small error, like getting the wrong version of a word wrong. So you need to make sure that you are proofreading your work. So the purposes of this presentation is to make sure that you are using the correct version. And in order to use the correct version, you need to obviously know the rules regarding which is which and how to use them correctly. So the first type of yaw tends to be the simpler one. This version with the apostrophe is a contraction because it's a shortening of a longer word, so to speak. And we've got an apostrophe in this version, which I have replaced with the letter A. So that means that the apostrophe is representing an omission, which means that the apostrophe is in the place of an A. So the full version of this is you are, and that's often the simpler version. The second version of yaw, without the apostrophe E, has a slightly more grammatical explanation, so forgive me for going into a little bit more grammar speak here. But yaw without the apostrophe E is a second person possessive adjective. So it's the possessive form of you. So you, a second person pronoun. You is related, in this sense, the possessive form, to what you own and or what somebody else owns. The reason why the arrow is there is because this version will often depend on the word that comes after your. It will often be followed by a noun, such as your lips or your car. So both lips and car there are nouns. We wouldn't want to say you are lips or you are car. Or it's sometimes also followed by what's called a gerund, which is a verb that functions as a noun in the context of a particular sentence. So 2 examples: your joking is offensive to some people, or your laughing is disrupting the lesson. Both laughing and joking there are functioning as a noun, which makes it a gerund. So you can, for example, figure out which yaw to use based on the word that follows it. Alternatively, you can just ask yourself if you want to say you are or not. One of the strategies, one of the tips or tests that you can do is to think about whether you can do the my your test, which means if your can't be changed to my, you need to use you are instead. So on the left hand side here we've got my house, your coat, my coat, your books, my books, your hands, my hands, and so on. All of those make sense, which means we have used the correct your. However, on the right hand side these don't make sense, which is why they're in pink. You're silly, my silly. You're laughing at me, my laughing at me. Clearly these don't make sense, which means that that version of your is wrong and we need to change it to the one with the apostrophe. So you are silly, you are laughing at me, and so on. So you can do the my your test to check which version of your you want to use. The simplest question to have in your head, though, when you are proofreading, is ask yourself, do I want to say you are or not? And the answer to that will determine which version of your you want to use. So if the answer is yes, you do want to say you are, then you need to use the apostrophe one, the contraction. If you don't, then you need to use the one without the apostrophe. So that question can often be the simplest way to check whether you're using the correct one, to actually say it in full and then figure out if it makes sense in the context of the sentence you've used it in. So that little question can often be helpful. And it also becomes automatic as well over time. So practice makes perfect. This question for nanoseconds is in my head when I'm using a your word, but over time it becomes easier and quicker. So we've got some examples here, and I've got the box there, you are or your, and you can pause this video now to fill in the gaps if you want to, or you can carry on watching to get the answers. Here we go. So I'm just going to pick on some of these at random. So number 1, your coat is hanging in the hall. Grammatically, obviously coat is a noun, so following the grammatical rule, that version of your is often followed by a noun, which is the case here. But we also don't want to say you are coat is hanging in the wall, because that would be ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. Same thing with number 6. We don't want to say you are brain needs rest. We want to say your brain needs rest, because the brain belongs to someone, it's a possession, but also brain is a noun, and again, the noun follows your, or that particular type of your anyway. And then we've got you are. And I think students often think that maybe there's only just one type of your. Sometimes students don't even know there's 2 types of your. So they tend to just use the one without the apostrophe the most. And it becomes inaccurate because they don't realise what they're saying is wrong. So to use the apostrophe RE means you are. So I hope you are coming to the party later. I can't believe you are 50. You look so young, and so on. So using the correct version of your is important to proofreading, but also maintaining as many marks as possible for written parts of the course. So in summary then, don't lose marks for avoidable errors. It's annoying. Make sure you proofread. It will take you seconds to use the correct version if you are really thinking about what you want to say. Ask yourself if you want your sentence to say you are or not. The answer to that question will determine which version of your you use, and perhaps change if you think it's wrong. But also do the my/your test. And that means if my can't be used instead of your in your sentence, you need to use you are instead. So in summary then, make sure that for any writing sections of any courses that use language for assessment purposes, that you don't make silly errors which could be avoidable by just proofreading and making very, very small alterations. Thank you.